Today, we're going to look at what's inside a natural incense making kit, how to use it, and a few neat tricks to do with your kit. All of that is coming up in this edition of Incense Magic. I first started selling incense making kits in 1995. There have been a lot of changes to those kits over the last 20 years, making them easier to use and providing a lot more versatility. Now, these kits contain only natural herbs, woods, and gums. There are no synthetic ingredients or oils used in the kits, although you can add your own oils or other ingredients if you wish. So let's start by unpacking one of these kits and see what's inside. So, included in each of the incense making kits is a pair of gloves. These are non-latex. Mixing sticks, and 3 packets of pre-mixed and pre-measured incense powders. And you also, of course, get an instruction sheet. Although there is some plastic used in the kits, we've kept it to the minimum amount needed to safely package and ship the kits, but no more than that. And I really encourage everyone to keep these resealable bags that the powders come in, and once your incense is dried, they make perfect storage container. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Now, it's also true that the incense packets don't have to be used all at once. So if you just use part of the packet, then you can go ahead and reseal it right back in the same bag until you're ready to use the rest. Each kit offers a lot of versatility, but let's look at the basics first. Now, each incense blend is complete with the aromatic, 1 or more base materials, and a binder already combined. And to begin rolling incense, all you need to do is add a little water and knead the mixture until it reaches the right consistency. Now, each packet includes a recommended amount of water to use, but because of variations in humidity, both in the air and in the ingredients, you might need more or less than the amount of water that's listed. Most of the packets in these kits will work well with about 1 tablespoon of water, but to be safe, you should only add about 2/3 of the recommended amount of water for each packet, and then add more as needed. Obviously, it's a lot easier to add more water, but it's really difficult to remove water if you've added too much. I like to use a nice glass or ceramic bowl to mix incense, but disposable paper bowls are a good alternative. A large white ceramic bowl has always worked the best for me because it makes it easy to see your blend. You can see down inside the bowl a lot easier. If it's white, it's hard with the dark colors. Now, the simple approach to using one of these incense making kits is simply to open up one of the incense mix packets. And then empty the entire contents into your bowl and add water. Now, this packet calls for adding 1 tablespoon of water. So what I'm going to do is add 2 teaspoons of water and mix, and then see if any more water is needed. So there's 1, and there's 2. Now, begin by stirring the water and the powder together using one of the mixing sticks. As you mix, you're going to notice that initially the water doesn't want to mix with the powder. It kind of almost looks like quicksand. But after a bit of mixing, the water tension will disappear and the mixture will start to break up into little balls. little bits. It's going to look a little bit like you're making pie dough because it'll break into these little tiny pea-sized balls. Now don't let this fool you. It may look at this point like this is still too dry and there's not enough water. That may be true, but you really can't tell simply by looking. At this stage, what you really need to do now is to start to knead it. That will give you a much better idea of how much moisture is in there and prevent you from accidentally adding too much water, which can definitely be a problem. Now the kit comes with gloves, and I'm an advocate of wearing gloves while you're mixing incense. Some incense makers do like to have that direct physical contact with the incense. That's certainly up to you, but I think that wearing gloves not only makes cleanup easier, but avoids the risk of absorbing any kinds of essential oils or things that you don't want to introduce into your body. But again, that's purely a personal choice. So I'm going to start kneading this. And I know it's hard for you to see down in there while I'm working in front of it, but yeah, there is a surprising amount of moisture in this mix at this point. Let me work it a little bit more and see if it needs any more water. Now, if your incense, it sticks together but it won't hold its shape, you've probably added too much water to it. On the other hand, if it's cracking and doesn't like to stick together, you probably have too little water. Again, you just want to be careful and not add too much water. It's easy to add additional water if you need it, but it's really hard to remove it if you put in too much. I will use the big piece of incense that I'm kneading here kind of as an eraser down inside the ceramic bowl so I can go back and pick up little bits and pieces off the bottom. But I can see by the way that this is still cracking and not sticking together quite the way I would like it to, that it needs a little bit more water. Not very much. So I poured a little bit of water into a bottle cap. Gives me a little better control over it. I'll pour a little bit in there and then we'll knead it a bit more and see if we can get the consistency that we want. There's an instant change in how it feels. Now you'll see that a few bits and pieces have broken off while I've been kneading it, and I've been picking them up off of the work surface. That's a good argument for keeping your work surface clean. If you have a nice clean work surface, then it's safe to do that, to pick pieces up and put it right back inside your incense mixture. On the other hand, if you forget to clean before you get started, then there's a good chance that any incense that falls to the side is going to pick up hair and dust and all those other things that we live with on a daily basis. I'm still seeing that it's just the tiniest bit dry, so I'm going to put just a couple more drops of water in there. Now, if you do find that you've accidentally added too much water, having a slightly watery mix is good if you're using an extruder. That little bit of extra water actually acts as a lubricant. But if you've really gone overboard and you're finding that it's kind of drooping between your fingers or it can't hold any shape at all, add some more powdered mixture if you haven't used the entire packet. That's the easiest solution. If you have used the entire packet, a bit of powdered sandalwood or other base material can absorb some of that extra water. Now, I like the way this feels a lot better now, but let's see if it passes the test. We're going to roll it into a ball. Just rolling it between my hands. And there we go. You can see that the surface is smooth, has very few cracks in it, and it's holding its shape well. So at this point, we're ready to begin rolling. There are a lot of different shapes and forms of incense you can make from this incense dough. You can create cylinders, jaw sticks, masala sticks, cones, and a variety of novelty forms. The easiest form to roll by hand for most people is the cone. You can use molds or forms to make cones, but I find it's easier to just roll them by hand That is, unless you plan on making hundreds of them. Using a quarter teaspoon of incense dough is just the right amount for a regular incense cone. Of course, you can use more. So I'm going to measure a quarter teaspoon here. You can see I'm just packing it down in to the measuring spoon. If you're ever having trouble with your incense dough sticking inside your measuring spoon, just swab a little drop of water down inside of it first, and that will allow it to release and come right back out. Now, if you hold this bit of incense between the thumb and forefinger of one hand, and then you cover it and use the thumb and forefinger of the opposite hand, a little difficult to see here on video, but I'm applying more pressure at this end than at this end, so that what we're going to get is this shape. It's not the traditional cone shape because it's really a four-sided pyramid. This will burn just fine in this shape if you would like to do that. But if you want that classic cone look, then you can simply lay it in the palm of your hand or on another surface, and by rolling it back and forth, you can get that beautiful classic incense cone. I am going to grab a paper bag here. Paper bag, very useful, as we'll see here in just a moment. But simply press it down flat. And there we have it. It's ready to set aside and dry. Now, as you can see, rolling a cone is fast and simple. Using the incense making kit, you can complete an entire batch of cones start to finish in less than 10 minutes. So don't ever let anyone tell you that incense making is hard or time consuming. Now, if you aren't interested in rolling cones, you can make sticks too. The easiest way to make incense sticks is to use an extruder, but you can also treat your incense dough a lot like pizza dough and just roll it out flat. Then you can use a knife, or better yet, a pizza cutter, to cut the incense dough into sticks about the thickness of uncooked spaghetti sticks. Now, the sticks are square, but they're going to burn just fine. If you prefer to have the round stick, you can roll the edges off just like you did with a cone, but that's not a requirement. If you want to make masala-style incense sticks with a wooden rod, you can simply insert a thin wooden skewer or even a toothpick into one end of a joss stick while it's wet. When it dries, the incense will work great in any masala burner. You can make lots of other shapes as well. You're going to find that incense dough is pretty versatile, and when it's properly made, it can hold almost any shape. When you finish rolling, set the incense aside to dry. Drying time depends on the humidity in the air, the form of incense that you choose to make, and several other factors. But generally speaking, cones take about 3 to 5 days to dry, and sticks dry a little bit faster. But never try to speed up the drying process. Incense shrinks when it dries, so if you try to accelerate the process, it'll often cause your incense to crack or warp. Sometimes it's unburnable as a result. A clean paper bag makes a great place to dry your incense. The paper will wick away the moisture slowly, and that allows the incense to dry safely, but the bag also protects the incense from any dust and damage when it dries. One thing you'll see is that wet incense is always darker than dry incense. If you leave a cone sitting on its base like this, the tip of the cone, even this one that was just rolled seconds ago, is already starting to dry. So you'll see that the tip will turn light first, and then it'll lighten as it dries. It'll go on down. Gravity also works on the water that's in that incense and will tend to pull that towards the bottom. So I let my cones sit like this for a few minutes, make sure that they're going to hold their shape, and then I will usually lay them over on their side to dry. That's not necessary. You can dry them sitting up like this. If you leave them sitting up like this, after a while, a day, maybe two, you can pick them up, and what you'll see is dry on the outside, but this dark ring down on the bottom. That means they're still not dry yet. Once you've got a single light shade all over the entire cone or the stick or whatever form you have, then I like to give it another day or two to dry, just to make sure that there's no moisture trapped deep inside. Okay, I promised you some neat tricks that you can do with your incense kit. One of the best things is, since the packets already contain the aromatic, the base, and a binder, you can mix the different scents in your kit any way you would like. No matter which powders you use, they'll all mix together, and they'll all produce incense that will burn well. You might not like the scent of some of the mixes, so it's a good idea to test a small batch before making a large one, but no matter what combination you use, the incense will burn. That can be important. Something else that you can do with the packets is to use them like powdered incense. You can burn the powder on charcoal or in an incense heater. You can even use these powders from your kit to make incense trails. There are many more things you can do with your incense kit. You can make incense braids, incense circles, and more. Check out other episodes of Incense Magic for more tricks, or read a copy of Incense, Crafting and Use, or Incense Magic for lots of other ideas. Well, that's all we have time for right now. Thank you so much for joining me today on Incense Magic. Until next time, be well and enjoy your incense making kit.